My brothers and sisters, we've just learned a new, really solid attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ash-Shakur, that every sajda, every dollar that I donate, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala appreciates it, even if it's so small compared to Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu and the likes. My brothers and sisters, inshallah, we will now be introduced to another member of the Abdullah family. This is the brother of Maryam, who we already learnt about before. And he also kind of agreed that we can go into his bedroom. Abdullah has just finished school. He just finished year 12. And just like any other guy, alhamdulillah, he prays and he fasts. And he goes to the mosque, and he goes to Shaykh Shadi's and Shaykh Umar's and Shaykh Abu Adnan's lessons. He watches Shaykh Bilal on YouTube, and has recently started attending lessons at Shaykh Wesam Charkawi's classes. And in his bedroom, something gets to him. Every time he goes to sleep, his parents are asleep. His door is closed. The windows are closed and the shutters are down. The lights are off. The laptop is in front of him. Yes, he goes to lessons, but he occasionally enjoys going onto the computer, whether it's checking out the prayer times on Muslim Village, as everyone does, or reading up on the latest news on Sydney Morning Herald. But every now and then, Shaitan gets to him and says, mate, no one's watching. Do what you want. So every now and then, he gets onto a site that he definitely shouldn't be on. Watching stuff he shouldn't be watching. The next day he prays normal, goes back to the mosque, but every night he has this urge that he can't help. It's almost like the sister who sits on Facebook. Yes, she watched the fiqh of Facebook by the Shaykh on YouTube, but every now and then someone pokes her on Facebook and wants to connect on Facebook, and so she connects, and one thing leads to another, and she's in a relationship that she probably shouldn't be in. It's like the brother who sits down in the classroom, no one's watching, the teacher doesn't care, no one's going to notice, and he pulls out that palm card that he wrote all the answers to the exams for. What attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will allow this person to ensure that he comes back to the right path and doesn't cheat and doesn't watch what he watches on the computer and doesn't engage in relationships that he shouldn't engage in or she shouldn't engage in? Or the brother who drives around in Bondi or in Brighton with this beautiful ute that has tinted windows, no one can see inside, but he can see everything and doesn't lower his gaze. Which attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will make this person come back to the right path? It's like the sister or the brother who fills out the Centrelink forms, knowing that they're filling it in wrong, that they're lying, but they want that extra dollar. Which attribute of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bring these people back to the ones who will enter Jannah? My brothers and sisters, we have our beloved Shaykh Wesam Charkawi, who will describe to us Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's amazing attribute that will change our lives. Ar-Raqib subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jazakumullah khair.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Amma ba'd ayyuha al-ikhwah. Today, I've been given the name Ar-Raqib. Inshallah, we're not going to dwell too much into the linguistic meaning, and that will come during the course of this speech. I wanted to delve in what it means off the bat. Ar-Raqib, many ulama have actually made comment on this name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is actually a fantastic name. It is one of the greatest names that a person, that if he understood what it meant and he engaged it in his life, it has the potential to change his life, manifest itself outwardly, and have ramifications in the hereafter for the better. Ar-Raqib is the one, in English it means the all-watching, the all-observant, the all-gazing. For now we will stick with the all-watching. Ar-Raqib is the one whom nothing is absent from. There is not a thing that exists who is absent from. Ar-Raqib is the one who watches a thing so closely and constantly and observes it so closely that it can never be forgotten, it can never be left unwatched, it can never be forgotten about, it can never be veiled from him, it can never be hidden from him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's gaze is always upon that thing and always has been upon that thing from the time the person entered, even from the time the person was in his mother's womb, for all time. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ar-Raqib, is the all-watching being, the all-watching Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whom everything comes under his gaze. There is nothing or any place that a person can go except that you are under his watch, except that you are under his gaze. There is no place to hide when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the ulama in this regard, they said, Ar-Raqib, what does that go back to? The scholars, they said this falls back on his hearing and seeing all things. Imam Al-Qurtubi, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when Allah mentioned Ar-Raqib in the Quran, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is Raqiba, the Imam Al-Qurtubi, he said Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it means that he knows everything about everyone in absolute detail, not holistically, but in absolute detail. وَهُوَ شَاهِد, and he is a witness over every single utterance they utter and of every single action they engage in. This is Ar-Raqib. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala therefore is the one who knows all things about you, who sees all things about you, and who hears all things about you, and in this way he is the all-watching. There is no place that you can go except that you fall under the gaze of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My brothers and sisters, a person living in this life, as you know, a lot of the time a person's life is in private. A person won't show you except what they want you to see. Some people live behind masks. Some people, that aspect of their life is hidden. The Prophet alluded to this in some form when he said, "Ala wa inna fil jasad mudghah," when he said, indeed in the body there's a morsel. He said it's the heart. If the heart is good, everything will be good, and if the heart is bad, everything will be bad. The Prophet was alluding to an inner aspect. There's an inner aspect about a person. You don't get to see that unless the person wants you to see that, but you don't get to see that. A person only sees what he wants you to see. So this inner aspect about a human being, wallahi, this name Ar-Raqib were to be engaged upon in a person's life and adhered to in a person's life, it has the potential to change this inner part of a person. Let's give an example. A person, for example, he will be sitting down, just like you now. A thought will cross his mind. You won't know exactly what thought has crossed his mind. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he sees him and he knows the thought that crossed his mind. A person, for example, will smile at his brother, but in his heart, he dislikes him. This is the inner aspect. Wallahi, this name Ar-Raqib has the potential to change that within and manifest itself on the outer. Umar ibn al-Khattab one day decided he wanted to test his people. He wanted to know the condition of the ummah. So what he did was he found a shepherd boy. When he found this shepherd boy, he had some sheep. So he came to the shepherd boy and he said to him, he said, "Will you sell me one of your sheep?" The shepherd boy turned to Umar ibn al-Khattab and he said, "These sheep do not belong to me, they belong to my master." He said, look, sell me one of these sheep and tell your master that if your master asks, tell him a wolf came and ate the sheep. He said, but the sheep are not mine, they're my master's. He said, tell your master that if he asks for the sheep, that a wolf ate the sheep. So the boy turned around and he said to Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu, he said, فَأَيْنَ اللَّهِ? He said, what about Allah? What about Allah? And then Umar began to cry and began to utter the same words, فَأَيْنَ اللَّهِ? فَأَيْنَ اللَّهِ? Indeed, what about Allah? What about Allah? And he began to cry. This is the manifestation. This is with living with the name Ar-Raqib, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala watches you in every instance. Wallahi, even now as you sit, even though you might be sitting and you might be paused, Allah is watching you. You might make a movement, Allah watches your movement. You might have a thought, Allah knows your thought. And upon you, on your right and your left, there's angels that write everything. Raqibun atidun. There is nothing that you can do and utter except that you have an angel sitting next to you, writing everything that you do. And the pen is never really lifted from any person except in three situations. An insane person until he becomes sane, an immature person until he becomes mature, and a sleeping person until he wakes up. That doesn't mean you can miss Fajr, you have to prepare for it. You can't use that as an excuse. My dear respected brothers, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He informs us in the Quran. And He gives us an analogy, He wants us to envisage this image in our minds. A leaf falling. There is not a leaf that falls from a tree except that Allah Azza wa Jal has knowledge of it. A leaf that falls from a tree. Can you imagine? Allah wants you to envisage something now. Even a leaf falling from a tree, Allah watches it. Allah's observance and gaze falls upon it. Allah also mentions every grain or particle upon the earth, even in the depths and darkness of the earth. He is aware of all of them. The other day we took some people out on a camp, and we came across some sand, and I held up some sand in my hand. And I said to the people, how much particles of sand do you think are in my hand? And one person responded and said, a couple million. I said, Subhanallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees every granule of sand. We're not talking about millions. We're not talking about billions. We're not talking about trillions. We're talking about Googleplex. The amount that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees and what He could see is unbelievable. Everything is tied to His sight. There is nothing that escapes His sight, Azza wa Jal. My brothers and sisters, you are exposed before Allah. You are bare before Allah. You are absolutely exposed before Allah. There is nowhere that you can go and there is nowhere that you can be except that you fall upon His gaze. You just saw an example up there on the board, on the side screen, that a person, he sits at his laptop at night. Can you imagine that if you were looking at something inappropriate, imagine what your mother would say if she saw you? Can you imagine what your father would say if he saw you? What about Allah Azza wa Jal? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees you and watches you. Allah is watching you as you watch that thing. And that's not to talk about the amount of calamities that may descend upon the person who watches these sorts of things. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala His gaze is upon you as you watch these inappropriate things. You must say to yourself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala watches me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is a witness over me. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching me. You must embed this within yourself in order to bring out that change from within, or to make that change from within. A young boy and a young girl, and forgive me for going into the private lives, but I think it's very important. A young boy and a young girl, they may speak together over the phone. They're not married, there's no contract between them. And they probably think to themselves that they're being clever, and that their mother doesn't know about it, their father doesn't know about it, and that nobody's none the wiser. In reality, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala watches them. It's very dangerous just to block off Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as though He does not see you or does not watch you. Allah hears you. Allah watches you. Allah's gaze is upon you. When you engage in any act of haram, or even be it good, Allah's gaze is upon you. He mentioned the cheating exam. Would you believe that one day, when I was studying, this boy came into the classroom and he said, I've come up with an ingenious plan to cheat. We said, what's that? He said, there's this invisible ink. He said, if you write it on a piece of paper, on the other side of the pen there's a light. He said, you can take the scrap of paper into the exam and have all the answers on it, and on the other light shine the light, and all the answers there, no one's any the wiser. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. Allah is a witness over this. Allah is watching this. and fear of Allah and knowing in your heart that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching can have only the greatest impact. A person, he tells a story to other people. In that story there's 10 lies. Or he exaggerates. What does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran? That not even a word is uttered except that is Raqib and Atid, except that there is there a responsible watcher, waiting and writing. There is not a word that you can utter except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows about it. And this is something that the Prophet wanted to instill in the Sahaba. Once the Sahaba were supplicating Allah out loud, Jaharu with dua. And the Prophet ﷺ said, he said, you are not calling a person who cannot hear. وَلَا غَائِبًا. And neither are you calling a person who is absent. You are calling someone who is sami'an. You are calling someone who is sami'an qariban. وَهُوَ مَعَكُمْ. You're calling somebody who hears you. You're calling somebody who is near to you. And you're calling someone who is with you. Look what the Prophet was trying to instill in the Sahaba. Today, wallahi, there are many examples that can be given. But subhanallah, when we think of that leaf, and when we think of those particles of sand, to think that Allah knows everything in its infinite detail, to think that Allah knows even the minuscule, you think He doesn't know about us? Jibreel came to the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, and he sat down with the Prophet. He came in the form of a man. When he sat down in front of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, he put his knee to his knees, his hands on his thighs, and he told him, tell me about Islam, tell me about Iman, and tell me about Ihsan. I want to focus on this aspect when he told him, tell me about Ihsan. He said, what is akhbirni an ihsan? What is Ihsan? And the Prophet said to him, alayhi salatu wasalam, it is to worship Allah as though you see Him. But if you cannot reach that level as though you see Him, then understand and know that He sees you. Jibreel came, when Jibreel left, he said to Umar, do you know who that was? He said, Allah and His Rasul know best. He said, that was Jibreel who came to teach you your religion. Look at the fruit here. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent Jibreel to teach the ummah a lesson. That was that to instill in your mind, and Allah wants you to understand that He sees you. He watches you, and that His gaze is upon you. You can never be left unwatched. You can never be left veiled. There is nowhere you can hide. You are exposed. You are bare in front of Him. What can you do or say except that He knows? He knows about the leaf. He knows about the sand. What can you possibly do that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is unaware about? A person leaves work early thinking that his bosses aren't there. My boss is away today. Nobody will be there to watch me. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. And were a person to enact upon this meaning, Ar-Raqib, understand this meaning and put it in his heart, wallahi, there will be absolutely no need to fear bosses, because you will fear Allah. All through this name, Ar-Raqib. By knowing that Allah is Ar-Raqib, who watches you, and that you are never outside the gaze or sight of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it is far more effective than fearing bosses. It is far more effective. Then you have a person, as was given in the example, who may look across a balcony from a vantage point where he thinks nobody sees him, and he looks at a woman. He looks at a woman under the assumption that nobody stares at him, nobody watches him, but Allah is watching him. Allah is watching him. He watches her and Allah is watching him. Can there be any escape from Allah's gaze? Absolutely not. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that Allah is watching you, is far more effective than fearing, for example, a police officer on the street who might issue you with a ticket. Fear Allah and don't break the traffic rules. Having that in your heart, that you knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching you, is indeed the far greatest effective thing that one can possibly imagine. They gave you the example about the story of Yunus when he was swallowed in the belly of the whale. In fact, it was in the middle of the ocean, and it was in the darkness of night. It was in the darkness of night in the middle of the ocean. And they said, we need to kick some people off this boat. A storm came. So they done a lot, they drew a lot. And Yunus' name got drawn out time and time again. They threw him in the ocean, he got swallowed up by the whale. In the darkness of the night, in the darkness of the belly of the whale, he knew, alayhi salatu wasalam, Yunus, that Allah was watching him. and he called Allah. He said, La ilaha illa ant subhanaka inni kuntu min al-zalimin. He knew that Allah was watching him, and he beseeched Allah, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was watching him. There could not be any darkness of which he was out of the gaze of Allah, or absent from Allah, or hidden from Allah in any way, shape or form. My brothers and sisters, wallahi, there is a benefit in Allah watching us. The benefit in Allah watching us, you know, sometimes a person, he has a situation where he needs to explain and give a lengthy explanation. Let's say that something happened and it put you in an awkward position. You would have to explain yourself. You would have to come and explain yourself to this person and say, look, this was the way it happened. This is why I was put in this situation. With Allah, it's not the case. With Allah, sometimes, wallahi, a person, he cries, or a person, he makes dua. No need for lengthy explanation. Allah knows you. Allah watches you. He sees you. He's known you always. There's no need for lengthy explanation. Sometimes a person, he becomes depressed. He says, nobody understands me. I'm depressed, nobody gets me. Nobody understands me. But if this person were to renew his relationship with Allah Azza wa Ta'ala, wallahi, it has the potential to take him out of any hole that he is stuck in. Out of any calamity that he's stuck in. All through what? Understanding that Allah, because you know in your heart that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows you. Because He has watched you always. Allah watching you has another benefit. It has the potential and possibility to save you from hellfire. How you might ask? If you engage in this meaning and put this meaning into your life, that Ar-Raqib, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching me. Allah is a witness over me. And you put it into your heart and you practice it in your life, it will manifest itself in actions. And the ramifications are in the hereafter. My brothers and sisters, the Prophet ﷺ, there's a hadith that was mentioned by Muhammad al-Ghazali, and he mentioned that people will come on the day of judgment, and they will come on the day of judgment with mountains of good deeds, but because of the sin that they used to commit when they were alone, all those good deeds will be scattered to dust. Why? Because when they were in private, they disregarded Allah Azza wa Jalla. So you can see sometimes a person, when he's amongst people, he's righteous. But when he's alone, he commits his sin. You have to be very, very careful. I want to also mention the story of Umar ibn al-Khattab once, when he was checking on the condition of his people. As he was checking on the condition of his people, he heard a mother say to her daughter from within their house, mix the water with the milk. Mix the water with the milk. So the daughter said to her mother, the daughter said to her mother, Amr has forbidden this. Amr has forbidden this. The mother said to the daughter, but Amr is not here now. Amr does not see us. The daughter said, but the Rabb of Amr sees us. The Rabb of Amr sees us. So Amr, he marked the door. He put a mark on the door, and he went home, and he said to his sons, which one of you, there is a woman in this house, which one of you will marry her? Eventually one of the sons married that lady, married that girl. And from that lineage, from that line, was born Umar ibn Abdul Aziz, who was a rightly guided Khalifa. And if you check that, if you see the biography of Umar Abdul Aziz, he was indeed a magnificent being in history. I'll leave you by saying, wallahi, maybe it's part of human nature to err. Knowing that Allah is Raqib doesn't mean you will not err. You will err from time to time, but you come back to Allah Azza wa Jalla. But wallahi, it is one of the greatest names that it can instill fear into the heart from embarking upon a sin. If you come and you're at the doorstep of a sin, say to yourself, Allah sees me, Allah watches me, Allah is a witness upon me. Where can you go? Where can you go where Allah is not? Where can you go where Allah doesn't see you? He sees the leaf. He sees the granules of sand. He watches you in your thoughts. He knows your movements. He knows your inner and outer. He knows you when you're in private. He sees you when you're in private. Do we have no shame? Do we have no shame of Allah that we block Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala out? Do we have no shame? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching everything about you, and He knows everything that you hide within your heart. He knows the leaf. He knows the grains of sand. He knows what you hide and conceal in your heart. And as Allah mentioned, He even knows the dishonesty within your eye. He knows the treachery of the eye. He knows the treachery of the eye. There is nothing that you can do, and nothing that you can say, and nothing that you can think, and nothing that you can ponder upon, and nothing that you can envisage in your mind, and no dishonesty that you can have in your eye, except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala watches it, knows it, and it's noted by the supervising angels next to you. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين سبحانك وبحمدك لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك ونتوب إليك.